everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are so excited to be here today to talk with one of our Hallmark talent. This is our second time having Rebecca Staab on the podcast. And thank you so much for coming back.
I love it. I love it. Last time, it's like we ran out of time. There was like so much. It was like, what? We're done already? So it's nice to be back.
Yeah, I really had a great time. We covered a lot of ground. I remember when we talked about the Fantastic Four and the Hallmark movies, and it was a great discussion. But it's been since 2018, so long, too long.
Really, it was that long ago?
Yeah, August 2019. Can you believe it?
It's such a chatterbox that kind of like out of the gate. It's like blah 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 blah. So, oh wow, I didn't realize it was long ago. Wow, time flies.
Yeah, can you believe everything that's happened since then?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I mean, so how was like early quarantine for you? 2020? Did you like do any sourdough baking or anything like that?
Early was nice because I was still at home because I live part-time in LA and part-time in
Yeah.
Vancouver. And normally I go up to Vancouver kind of, mid to late February-ish. And so right when I was kind of getting ready to go, Will, my husband, had to go to New York. And, instead of getting a dog sitter and everything, it's like, well, I'll just wait. I'll just stay home for a couple more weeks and I'll go up when you get back from New York. Well, that was the beginning of March.
Yeah. Oh no.
Going to New York was a little bit, something's really weird, So he just went, did his event, came home, and it was like 3 days later, in lockdown. So at least I was still at home. And, we were fortunate because, the biggest thing, we didn't know anyone who got sick. Like, my heart just broke for the people that, really had to experience the actual illness. Thank God, we didn't.
Sure.
Since we were home and, we have a yard and we've got the dogs and, a big enough house that, if you're just together all the time, we loved it. In a way, I'm like, wow, if this is what retirement is like.
It's definitely tested some marriages, some relationships. Sounds like you guys did well.
We did really well. And the funny thing was, is I was so busy. However,
Yeah.
I don't know, all the people's like, oh, I cleaned out all my closets. Oh, I cleaned out this space. I'm like, crap, I didn't do any of that. But I don't know what I was so busy doing, So I felt like it was useful time, but I didn't accomplish all those things that you go, someday I'm going to go through
Yeah.
all the things from high school and digitize them,
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that crap. So I don't know what we did, but it wasn't bad. And then I ended up going up to Vancouver then, actually on July 1st. So it was still pretty much in the thick of it in 2020. And so I flew up there, and it was kind of funny because there were like 9 people on the plane, and I had to quarantine in my apartment in Vancouver. I just have, it's like a 400 square foot studio, and the windows open 4 inches. And so I was thinking, it's like, oh God, this is going to, be a long 14 days. So, I physically had to stay inside my apartment. It's like, you couldn't even go down to take the garbage out. And, I have to say, I was well stocked enough that I never had to go out for food. That is the place that I organized everything. I organized, the closets and the cleaning, utensils and all that kind of stuff. And, filed all my paperwork because I was literally locked in a 400 square foot room for 2 weeks. Caught up like on a lot of phone conversations with friends. And I used that time so constructively that it went really fast. Like, again, it wasn't bothersome because I wasn't going to wallow. That's just going to make it worse. I'm like, let's make this really useful. And so once I was out of quarantine, it was summer in Vancouver and everybody's outside. And so it felt safer outside. And at that time, at the beginning of COVID, Canada just seemed a little bit safer than the States at the time. So I felt like, and I was just out riding my bike and, getting together, with friends, but safely. And it, the thing that was nice is since nobody was traveling, the part of town where I live in Vancouver is like very heavy with summer tourists. I mean, Vancouver like quadruples in population in the summer because it's such a fabulous vacation destination. Well, because of COVID, there were no tourists. And so down at the beach where I live, like there was nobody. It was just the locals. And
Yeah.
so it was like really great. We're just like, oh wow, so that was nice. And then I started working. I really just kind of had a month, where projects were just getting off the ground. Like production companies were figuring out all the COVID protocols and blah, blah, blah. And then I just started working right away in September. And
What
I
was your
actually,
first project that you went back to? Do you remember?
yeah, and I went to Winnipeg. That's when I shot um, Starlight Cafe,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
with Paul and Kimberly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really like the first job in the times of COVID, with masks and shields and, but everybody was sequestered and you couldn't sit in the same room. And it was very different work wise because the entire social element was completely gone. Like, I don't know who the cameramen were, or like first ADs because everybody, since it was early on and there was no vaccine, it was double masks and goggles and shields. And those guys had to leave the room if we were, rehearsing. And then it was very just the necessity of the team when we were shooting. And then you couldn't talk before, during, or after. It was like shoot your scene and then leave the room. And then, then we'd go back to our, people were either in little apartments or hotel rooms. And, we really weren't supposed to do anything. And so it was, I don't know, I adjusted quite fine because I always just find something interesting to do with my time. And so when we were on set, at least the cast could be together. And, Paul Campbell and Kimberly Sustad are just two of the funniest people I've ever worked with in my life. And so when we were shooting, or just the actors were together in the green room, we just had so much fun. And Bruce, who played my husband, he and I would just go out to dinner together, like in, restaurants that had, reliable, seating and that kind of stuff. So it was just different. It wasn't bad. It was just different. You go, well, you just make the adjustments, and fortunately I was in an apartment, so I at least still had a kitchen. So I would have, Instacart deliver because we weren't supposed to. We had to stay in our bubble. It's like, don't go to any stores. And so I don't know. I was kind of comfortable because I had a bunch of auditions that I had to tape. So I was just kind of putting auditions on tape in my little apartment and going to work. And I don't know. I'm a pretty effective person with my time. I don't waste a lot of time. So it all went very quickly. And then I literally like finished shooting that movie. Like, I wrapped like at 2 a.m. They took me back to my apartment, grabbed my suitcases, took me to the airport because I had like a 6 o'clock flight, but I had to be at the airport at 4. And so I got on the plane. I flew back to Vancouver, and I was starting on the last episode of Chronicle Mysteries. And so literally, I wrapped at 2, went to the airport,
Wow.
got on the plane at 6, got off the plane at 7:30 Vancouver time. That, crew picked me up at the airport at 7:30, and I went straight to set for Chronicle Mysteries.
You didn't have to quarantine for that one.
Well, the thing is, I didn't have to quarantine because I was still in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But, most productions were really strict with their bubbles. Like, you
Sure.
couldn't interact. So since I had just come from a different production, I couldn't interact with anybody. Like, they took me straight to my trailer. and I couldn't even go into hair and makeup. They had hair and makeup come to my trailer and do me there. And then when we went to set, I couldn't even. They kind of have a green room is where like the actors, when you're not on set, where you kind of sit and have, you know, where you kind of sit around and wait in between. I couldn't interact with the other actors because I had come from a different bubble. So I had like my own green room, like way at the other end of the hall. Like I had a room all by myself. And
Yeah.
the only people that could come in my room, like, were the sound guy and makeup. And so, like, I was like, it was so funny because I was just like in my own world. It's like, stand over there, don't talk to anybody, don't touch anything. And so it was kind of funny because, again, it was early on in COVID where you go, the norm was to be as absolutely careful as you could because, I mean, we were just grateful that we could actually work.
Sure.
And we were being tested every day. And so I got through that show. And then literally, gosh, what was it, like 2 days later, I started on Love Hard, which was a Netflix movie with Nina Dobrev and Jimmy O Yang. And so literally all during COVID, from, I went up to Canada in July, started working the beginning of September, and I worked all the way through on Love Hard until the beginning of December.
Wow.
We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
I just had to stay. I just stayed there a couple more days because I had like some auditions that I had to tape, and then I went home. So, even when I was on Love Hard, like, they were super strict because since it was in Netflix and like a really big budget project, it was like, outside of your immediate family. It's like, please do us a favor. Don't have any contact. Don't go to a store if you need anything. We will pay the delivery costs. Don't go to the grocery store. We'll pay the delivery costs. Get your meals delivered. We'll pay the delivery costs. And so, so for that whole movie, which was, when did I start that?
And that must have been hard because you're a very social person. I mean, I don't know you that well, but it seems like you're very social. So that seems like that would be hard.
Yeah, and again, then when I'm at home, I'm in a 400 square foot apartment, and so it wasn't
Right.
like, you're back home with your family or your husband or your dogs.
Yeah, did you just Zoom call with your husband during all this?
We would just talk on the phone.
Oh,
One of my best friend from LA, she was up in Vancouver at the same time. She was working on Big Sky on that series. And so the same thing, she was locked in her apartment and I was locked in my apartment, and like, she didn't have family either. And so she was literally just a mile down the beach from where I live. And so she, I figured, well, we were allowed to be with our quote unquote family. And so I'm like, Valerie, we're each other's family. And so we didn't see anybody else. Like, she and I would meet up, that there was a little restaurant down on the beach that they had outdoor heaters, and so you could still sit outside even though it was winter. And we would sit down there like bundled up in our coats and our hats and our boots, and since we were sitting outside, just she and I, and they would give us like this little table in the corner, out on the patio. And so she was really my only personal contact. And it was, I don't know, it was okay for me. It was a lot harder for her because she was just like in Vancouver shooting on location. And so she felt a lot more isolated. Whereas, I've been in Vancouver for almost 7 years now. And so it kind of feels like home. So I didn't feel as displaced or alone because it feels like home. And, I just spent time outside. I mean, gosh, I rode my bike until it was just way too cold, and I lived just like a half a block from the beach. And so even though it's winter, you still go for walks, and I was still outside a lot. So I don't know, I think a lot of it was psychological. Some people had a harder time than others, and I just kind of decided not to have a hard time, mostly because I was so grateful to be working. Because with everything that was going on in the world, I was like, thank God, like, I can't believe I'm working right now. Like when the entire world is ground to a standstill, I just boom, 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 did 3 jobs literally back to back. So, I think that put me in a state of mind I was just focused on gratitude. And, so, yeah, then I came home kind of right before Christmas, and then it was still COVID, so we just stayed home. But, again, I'm very, very happy at home, and, it wasn't really horrible, and then I got vaccinated the very beginning of 2021. I was really fortunate that I actually got like my first vaccination in January, so I got the second one in February. So,
Nice.
by the end of February, I was already feeling, a lot more confident health wise, even though, we were really strict with mask wearing and all that kind of stuff. So,
So yeah, so you did 2 movies with Paul Campbell, 2 movies with Tamara Mowry.
mhm.
And so was that second movie, because the Santa Stakeout that you did with both of them, was that any kind of different? Did you feel like you were actually get to spend time with them at all, or was it just sort of this weird thing where you weren't able to really socialize for either of them?
Yeah, it's because of COVID, like we couldn't really hang out. But I do have to say, yeah, because when I worked on with Tamara before on Christmas Miracle, it was one of those days, like I was in every single scene, and she was just like one of the most like effervescent people. Like she is magnetic. She's one of those people that like you walk in a room and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on in here? Like she just radiates from the inside. And so even though I'd only worked with her kind of that one day, a couple of years ago, I just, oh, she's one of those people I'm like, I cannot wait to work with her again. And that's what she'd even promised then, because that was her first Christmas Miracle a couple of years ago, was her first Hallmark movie. And she just said, I want to have, like a strong female, kind of circle. And since we got along so well that first time, she's like, I know we're going to work together again. And so, and then, having worked with Paul just the year before, and since that was the first movie during COVID, the cast was closer than the cast normally is, because we were the only people that were allowed to be with each other, because normally, you have other people around you, but because we were in Winnipeg on location and cast could only be with cast, and Paul, like I said before, is just so funny and so clever and so quick. I just was like, so when I booked Santa Stakeout and I found out it was the 2 of them, I was like, woohoo! I'm like, I just scored. I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. And so, yeah, like my first day on set, I kind of didn't feel like, oh, it's my first day. Like you get to set and you're like, hey, like it felt like we already had, a little crew, a little, little club. And so it was so much easier in our scenes, since that movie was, kind of a comedy. It was easier to, kind of let loose and laugh, because we all knew each other better by then. So that was so fun. working on that together with both of them. So I hope I work with the two of them again.
We really enjoyed it. It was so different. Like we haven't really had a Christmas countdown to Christmas mystery before. It was something a little bit different. I think there was one Murder She Baked movie that was Christmas themed. I think that's the only other one that we've gotten, and that was just fun. It was and great casting, and was it fun to kind of be the, and spoiler alert, I guess, to fun to be the burglar?
Yeah, because when they asked me to do it, I didn't know at the time, like when I accepted, because I just was excited to do the project and to work with those two. So at the time that I accepted the job, I didn't know. And then when I got the material, I'm like, you are kidding me. I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny, because I thought it was a really good twist. That I think that most of the audience didn't see that coming. And so, that's the thing in the earlier scenes where, like, my character, I'm the only one who knows. And then it's that whole, do you cover? How normal do you play? Do you give any sense of guilt or like red herring to anybody? Or do you just play it as, so I just try to play it as absolutely innocent as anybody else would who doesn't want to be discovered, So I didn't, maybe that, I just was going to let the audience themselves.
It was on most of our top 10 lists, the Santa Stakeout for Hallmark 2021. We all really enjoyed it. We thought it was funny and fresh and just very enjoyable.
Yeah, because it was light. Like you couldn't stop watching.
Yeah. So with Love Hard, so you knew going into it, this is Netflix production.
Yes. Yeah, did that movie, because it was, because when you're shooting something, you just never know. You know how much you love it, and you know how good you think it is, but you never know down the road. You go, well, what happens? How is it edited? How is it cut together? How does the network handle it? But, early on, while we were shooting, and Netflix was getting the dailies, as we progressed through the production, we knew that Netflix was really into it, that they were loving it. And so that's always really good to hear. And that also was so much fun to work on, because Hernan, the director, let us improvise a lot.
Really?
He kept the camera rolling, and everybody was very well equipped, to improvise and stay in character and kind of stay within the parameters of where the story was going. And so it was fun to see how much of that was still in the film. And, I just had a ball. You know what? I have to say, playing moms in these movies, I don't have kids, and I always wanted children, and I wanted a lot of children. And so I kind of think that sometimes when I play a mom, there's a part of my heart that really, really, really loves these actors playing my kid. Like I really love them. It's not just so much, hey, I'm playing your mom.
Yeah.
Part of me that longs for them, and there's a part of me that it plugs into something like puzzle pieces in me that never had, that never really got a place to go. And so, Jimmy O Yang and Harry Shum Jr., who played my sons, and I was the stepmom. I didn't give birth to them there.
Oh.
Oh my God, I loved those guys so much. They're so lovable. And it was so funny because even each in their different way, as the characters were, and it was, and I just,
it seemed like a really fun cast, and of course you've got the diversity, which is great. And
James who played my husband, he and I actually
Legend.
acting class together in New York City back in 1986. We both studied with
Wow.
Morgan in 86 and 87. And I remember him from that class because in the class I was always like, that guy's really good. That guy's going to really go places. And so over all of these decades, whenever I would see James in something, I'm like, there he is, there he is. I knew it. I knew he was I knew he was going to make it. And so then when I saw he was playing my husband, like the very first day that we showed up, I'm like, you were in Uda's class, weren't you? I go, did you study with Uda Hagen in New York? And he's like, yes. And I said, in 1986? He's like, yes. And I said, you sat up in the back of the room, like in that upper left-hand corner, didn't you? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, I was in that class. We were in class.
That's so funny.
This gives me
Small
goosebumps.
world.
Yeah, way back then. I'm like, man.
Well, I think that because I love the Hallmark moms as well. I mean, there's you and Camille Mitchell and Tal Rothery and Linda Boyd. Those are some of my favorites. And I figure you could have all of you and do a new version of the First Wives Club.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be fun? That would be so good.
It really would be. Well, it's funny because speaking of Linda Boyd, then I worked with her. I just did 2 movies like back to back with her. I worked on Christmas in Tahoe.
Yep.
And we were kind of like the 2 moms that were in cahoots trying to set up, her son with my daughter. And oh my God, I have to tell you, Christmas in Tahoe, it moved me so much because first of all, like I was the hugest Train fan. And so then I turned into like a total fan dope, meeting, Pat because I was just like I turned really shy. Like it was really hard for me to talk to him and we have this scene and I just kind of felt like that dopey person that just like stands there and stares at him with a big smile on your face because I'm like, say something, find something clever to say. And I just kept like, everybody was like goofing around and talking, but I was just like the biggest like starstruck fan, doing a scene with him. And
Well,
then,
I mean, that whole movie, first of all, was way better than I expected. The summary did not make it sound very appealing. It sounded very by the numbers. Then I watched it and really enjoyed it. And I thought that they had Kyle and Laura had nice chemistry. And I thought that Pat did pretty good because it was his first acting he's ever done.
yeah.
He has no other credits, at least on IMDb, except for music video credits.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. I like the whole twist on his character, that he's just a guy kind of getting discovered and music. Hey, he gets to go on tour with his band. Laura Osnes, oh my God, I love that girl. I mean, from the minute I met her, you talk about where somebody fits in your heart. I mean, I am just constantly, I was like, like if I have a daughter, like I wanted her to be just like you. Like it just makes me cry. Like she and I just like really embraced each other, that it was beyond being actors or being friends or being nice. Like she literally, there was a piece inside my heart that I'm like, you fit and I'm keeping you forever. Like you're always my daughter. I mean, I just like, if I could pick a daughter in the world, I'm like, I get her. I mean, Laura Austin, I absolutely loved her. So, playing her mom was like, there were so many scenes, like we would just lock eyes and I would just tear up. Like, it's not in the film because, the story wasn't going in that direction. But that story, it was kind of like the relationship between her and her dad. And so, the mom, I was like a little bit more on the sideline, which is a bit of a shame because she and I had such an undeniable, palatable connection. And so I really hope that I can work with her again because, I mean, I just know that we could make magic. But Laura Boyd, going back to Laura Boyd, oh my God, one of the funniest people I have ever met in my life. She is a hoot. We had so much fun on that show, and I wish I mean, the frustrating thing as an actor with all of these shows is we shoot so much more than ever
Yeah.
and screen.
Well,
So,
she was so funny in that movie because she's all obsessed with this a cappella group. What
uh,
is this? It's
I
funny.
yeah, that there would have been more, one on mom with the two moms, because we were always just kind of off on the side and stuff. That, yeah, when you talk about, this group of gals, kind of our age, that could all work together and be very distinct characters. So I worked on that with her, and then, turned around and then did Cut, Color, and Murder with her again. Like, she's somebody, I wish I could do every movie with her, because she's she's so
It's great.
funny, but then, generous and kind and talented. She's so good. Like, she's one of those actors that just makes everything look so easy and so real, that she can be funny and then she can just break your heart. So,
Well,
it was.
and
I,
this cast was very musically gifted. So I was wondering if there was any like singing behind behind the scenes, or I guess were you still all pretty
that was the thing that I
closed
wish,
off?
talented as Laura is, that I wish that she could have been singing in it.
Because Kyle Selig, he also is a Broadway singer,
No,
and then you've got Pat.
please have a sequel to that, so that, because that only scratched the surface
Yeah.
of how much talent was in that cast. The fact that Laura didn't get to sing, and, if those two could have sung together, I mean, we could have a whole, whatever, Sound of Music, Music Man, Grease, you go, oh my God, could you just see those two
Yeah.
together, like within a Hallmark setting?
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Time that they really should do a Hallmark musical. Can you imagine the ratings if they did one of those like live musicals on Hallmark during Christmas? Because Christmas is all about music. It's so it's just a natural fit, and there's so many people in the Hallmark family that are musically gifted that you could have it. I think it would do super well and be great. I would love it.
Network, that is completely untapped, and I just like how High School Musical,
right?
Musicals just really took off again, because a lot of times, like dancing.
I mean, they just had Annie live just barely in December, and that did, I think, well.
Yeah. I mean, because they can just pull the best of the best talent, and the fact that we had two Broadway stars, not just people who could sing or like, these are award-winning Broadway stars. So I was hoping that, something would come out of that.
Well, hopefully sooner, because Kyle was one of the breakouts for me from last year. I really enjoyed him in Tahoe, and then also in the Real Housewives of the North Pole on Peacock. That he played one of the sons in that, and he was great, charming, really fun.
So charming. It was like, that even in Tahoe, like, I loved watching him because you didn't know what he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That he just wasn't like, he's not a cookie cutter actor. And it's like, oh, this is how I say it, and this is how I'm supposed to do it. He was so stinking real that I just found him like not acting ever. And just like his reactions and stuff like that it was part of the character in Tahoe. He's a little bit of a not like a naughty boy, but he was like that, that he was a little bit of like a troublemaker in a way, or like he could laugh behind people's backs, that he could be kind of trouble, but it's like such lovable trouble.
Right. Yeah. I felt that too. Yeah, it was fun.
I just loved, watching those two together on screen. That I think, like a bit more liberty in a script or in a situation with those two together. Oh my God, it
would be fun. So for Cut Color Murder, this is another spoiler alert. So your character is the one that gets murdered, and was that kind of? Have you ever been the murder victim before in these mysteries? Or is this the first?
I was crushed. I was so crushed. Found out. I'm like, no, because they asked me to do it, and originally my character's name was Mitzi Culpepper, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to be this character. It's like Mitzi, and she runs the pageant, and she's just all that. It's just one of those characters. I'm just like, just painted for me. And it's like, how big can I go with this? How much do I, do you get broad? Do you make it more sinister? Do you make her loving? Do you make people really hate her? It was such a rich character, because like there's a million things that I could do with that character. And her relationships, she had a very specific relationships with all the different people, Right. And it was a really complex character. And I was just, when they asked me to play her, I'm like, yeah. And then I get the script. I'm like, what? I can't. They're like, no, I died. No. I had big plans for Mitzi. So, I
think you need to write fan fiction.
In the time that
Mitzi fan fiction.
Well, the beauty of that show is, hey, first of all, before I go off the rails on Mitzi, that show was so good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was riveted, because you do like a lot of Hallmark shows, they kind of have the formula and blah, blah, blah. That I thought that show was so good. Julie and Ryan are so good. Like they're just with their comedy and their reality and their, the chemistry, but the nitpicky. But I thought the script was so good, and the list of suspects really kept everybody guessing. I thought it was written so well, because had I not known who the killer was, I was literally like watching it on the end of my seat, because, I read the I knew the script, and I'd seen the scenes shot that I was in. But even as an actor, I didn't see the movie until the audience saw the movie. So I watch it right along with the audience, the ups and downs and the surprises and the twists. And I just thought, I think that show, I'm knocking on wood. You can hear me knocking on my wooden desk. That show has a long life, because, oh my, I think it was so good. So here's my plan for Mitzi. Even though, Mitzi met her demise, either she didn't really die, right? We don't know if she really died. So maybe that's one thing. The other thing is there's all the flashbacks, going back to Allie's husband, Dan. There's all these flashbacks. And so you go, well, Mitzi's alive during that whole flashback time.
Yeah, prequel.
Yeah. So you go, there's, a whole alternate universe that Mitzi is very much alive in.
Yeah.
And we're going to be the show will be going to that alternate universe because of Dan. We're going to be following the mystery of what happens to him. And so I'm like, hey, Mitzi's around. Let's use Mitzi. So I think that's one possibility. And then the other possibility, there's always the twin. Yeah. There's always the twin.
Yes.
Sister or the cousin, that either comes to town or lives in town, or, because it's just, it's such a great, energy and catalyst for what's going on in town. You always kind of need somebody who stirs the pot.
Oh, I
And
hope they make you a twin. That would be amazing.
oh my God, I would just those that you work on, in their movies, and so there's a limited time, and us actors are like if this was like if we could come to work on this show every day, like if this was
Yeah.
this was your job, you just go, I would just be in seventh heaven. And so that entire, cast and crew and the production team on Cut Color Murder is top notch. I mean, Chris McNeely, the producer, is just like he's so good and he's so hands-on and has had so many, successful shows. And Ryan, who's the lead of the show, he's also one of the producers. And so he's so, it's nice for him to have a part in that show in both positions. And I think that has a lot to do with the, the success and the appeal of that show. And, Julie, I just, I know that it kind of sounds like every movie. I'm like, I love this person. I love that person. But every one of those people really are special, like in their own way. And I'm not fake. I don't love everybody. And
Right.
everybody makes me rave about them. But I do rave about the people that really move me, that I'm like, that I want to be friends with. I want to be associated with professionally, like people that excite me and I feel are good people and they do good work, but they have good hearts and good intentions. And so it isn't everyone,
Mhm.
but in that show, it is both of them. I mean, they deserve to be raved about. So,
Well, I mean, everybody, almost everybody that I've ever talked to in the Hallmark world, whether it's acting, writing, has just been so nice. And I mean, I guess they're not going to like, show their bad side to me as a podcast, but a few of them have. But for the most part, they've all been so nice. And I walk away and I'm like, wow, that person was just the coolest. It was so nice. So I can understand what you're feeling. And I think it feels sincere. I don't think it feels insincere. And I think it's great. And well, we like to end our interviews with some fun, silly questions. You've already had in your last interview, like the regular questions. So you get this time the Christmas questions, the holiday questions. So
okay.
put on your holiday cap. Going back. All right. First question. What is your favorite holiday drink? Like hot
I
cocoa or
like
eggnog?
eggnog
Mm-hmm.
with a little splash of bourbon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. What is your favorite holiday cookie or treat?
I like sugar cookies. Sugar cookies with frosting.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
like definitely.
What is your favorite Christmas song or carol?
Christmas Carol, Oh Holy Night.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, even just saying those three words, like just bring tears to my eyes. That song, I love Oh Holy Night. Well, there's two. That really, really is me. Oh Come All Ye Faithful reminds me so much of my dad. That my dad was a really good singer and all his brothers were. And when I was little, and we always had huge Christmases at my grandma's house in Kansas with all the aunts and uncles and cousins. And, we would stay up late. We always had Christmas on Christmas Eve. And we'd all stay up and we'd go to midnight mass. And midnight mass, I will never forget, like as a kid. And there was one time when they were singing, Oh Come All Ye Faithful. And he's such a beautiful voice. And I'll never forget just like that awe of being a little girl looking up at my dad. And it was like, and so that song, it's in my blood, because you go to me, that's my dad. And that's Christmas growing up. And it's so personal. And it's St. Mary's Church in Hays, Kansas. And so that's, and we would sing it in Latin too. And so especially, when they do the Adeste Fideles, it's like, I know every word to that because we sang that all the time. And so those two, Oh Come All Ye Faithful and Oh Holy Night. Look at it. I'm sitting here crying.
Those are good ones. Those are good ones.
Wiping away tears.
All right. Well, what is your favorite classic Christmas movie?
There's too many. What is the name? There's one that Will and I kind of made our tradition. Dang it, I'm just blanking out. And it's with Janet Leigh and Robert Mitchum.
Holiday Fair.
Yes!
Yeah.
And I'm so
great
because I forgot the name, because most people don't even know that. So listeners, next Christmas, Holiday Affair, you've got to watch it. Isn't that fabulous? I love that.
Yeah, it's really fun. He is such a character in that movie. He's such a personality.
Boy, that little boy. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, the little boy. Yeah. All right. Which do you like better, Scrooge or the Grinch?
Scrooge.
Okay. Clear lights or colored?
Clear.
Would you rather be in a snowball fight or build a snowman?
Build a snowman.
Okay. Would you consider yourself a good gift wrapper or not?
I am a brilliant gift wrapper. I am like award-winning gift. Oh my God. I could send you pictures. We'll do that next time.
Okay, good.
It'll blow your mind. Oh, gift wrapping is like a passion.
Yeah. Oh, good. All right. Last question. Do you have an ugly Christmas sweater?
I do not.
Probably because you spend a lot of time in California.
I don't have an ugly one. No, I have like a Christmassy sweater that has, like snowflakes on it, but it's not ugly.
Mm-hmm. You're like, mine looks good. What are you talking about? That's great. Well, very good. You answered all the questions.
Good questions. Yeah, you really got me going. It's funny because when they all trigger something, they all have an attachment. It's not just an answer. It's like I could give you, a 20-minute dissertation on each answer.
Well, I was telling some of the girls today that some people are storytellers, and you just ask them a question and they tell you a story, and that's just in their blood. And those are a joy to interview, and you are definitely one of those people. And so thank you so much. And we definitely have to make sure it's not 3 years again for the next time.
Yeah, let's do. I know, you can see again, it went so fast, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well, do you have social media you want to share?
On Instagram, I think I'm just at Rebecca Staab. I need to be so much better on Instagram. That's where I don't know, I have like too much going on in real life that it's hard for me to be as active as I should be. So I need to work on my Instagram. So you guys can help me out. Follow me on Instagram. It's at Rebecca Staab. On Twitter, I'm at Rebecca Staab 1, like the number 1, Rebecca Staab, numeral 1. And then Facebook, I'm just me, Rebecca Staab. And then there's also Rebecca Staab fan page. And most of the stuff on my Rebecca Staab, on my real page, I just make public anyway. So it's pretty easy to, follow me, that if you've given me a friend request and I haven't gotten to it, I'm not ignoring you. Just go ahead and follow me on there anyway, because all my posts are public. But you can follow the fan page too. And I have to get cracking on Instagram. There's not enough hours in the day. I can't.
Yeah, it's busy. It's hard. But thank you so much. This was so much fun. And if you're listening, let us know what you think about all the things we talked about. What do you think of our First Wives Club reboot idea? Because I think it's brilliant. We should do it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us out so much. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, and all that information is in the description. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was a blast. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.